This is Gentle Confessions, where truth speaks in a whisper, and healing begins in the quiet. Tier 1. The quiet slide into temptation. I never meant to cheat. Not really. At least, I didn't wake up one morning and decide I was going to betray everything my degree stood for. But life, as I've come to learn, isn't made up of sharp, clean breaks between right and wrong. It's a slow erosion of discipline, of certainty, of who you thought you were. It started in the winter of 2021. Ontario was in another lockdown, and everything felt foggy. I was taking 5 online courses from my bedroom in Guelph, the same room I used to play video games in. Cry in after breakups, sleep in until noon when I skipped high school classes. Now it was my lecture hall, my exam center, my everything. The first time I opened another tab during an online test, it wasn't premeditated. I was tired, underprepared, and the question looked like it had been written in another language. I stared at it for what felt like a full minute, heart pounding, fingers frozen. Then something in me whispered, "Just look it up." And so I did. It was quick, efficient. I didn't even feel guilty at first, just relieved. Like I'd escaped drowning by grabbing onto something illegal but buoyant. I got the answer. I moved on. And then, I got an A. No suspicion. No warning email. Just that perfect letter. Clean and crisp on my transcript like a gold sticker for being clever enough to survive a broken system. I remember sitting back in my chair, blinking at the grade, and feeling strange. Not triumphant. Not ashamed. Just strangely distant from it. Like the A didn't belong to me, but I'd been allowed to borrow it. But once you realize no one's watching, it changes things. My courses were asynchronous. Mostly pre-recorded lectures, posted readings, online forums that no one really cared about. Professors were overwhelmed. TAs barely responded to emails. It was the perfect storm or the perfect excuse. The second time I cheated, I didn't even hesitate. It became a kind of method, a process. Copy the question. Open a new tab. Google it. Rephrase the answer just enough to dodge plagiarism filters. Paste it. Done. Sometimes I even timed myself not for the test, but for how fast I could cheat. I told myself it wasn't really cheating. Not really. Everyone was doing it. The system was broken. The rules weren't built for lockdown learning. I was still reading. I was still learning. Wasn't I? But something quiet inside me knew. Something that sounded a little like my dad's voice. Or maybe my high school English teachers, who once told me that true character is who you are when no one's watching. Well, no one was watching. And I didn't like who I was becoming. I stopped joining Zoom office hours. I avoided class group chats in case someone asked how I got a certain answer so fast. I muted every email notification that looked like it came from academic integrity. I started lying to my parents about how great online learning was going. And the lonelier I felt, the more I cheated. I still remember the one course I genuinely liked: psychology of human behavior. There was something poetic in studying how people make decisions, while I was making the worst ones. I wrote a paper about cognitive dissonance, how we convince ourselves that wrong is right if it helps us cope. I got an A+ on that too. I cheated on the conclusion paragraph. Ironic. Right one night, after submitting a midterm I had entirely outsourced to the internet. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart beating a little too loud in the dark. There was no sound, but I kept expecting one, like a knock on my door. Like the digital universe would suddenly collapse in on me and reveal what I'd done. But it didn't. No one found out. No one even suspected. I kept getting high marks. My GPA rose. I got invited to a virtual honor society. My parents were proud. My peers were impressed. My profs, oblivious. And me, I was a little more hollow every week. It's hard to explain the kind of ache that comes from getting away with something. It's not fear, not guilt. Exactly. It's more like erosion. Like something is quietly rotting inside you, but you can't name it. So you smile. You reply, thanks when someone congratulates your grades. You post about exam stress, just like everyone else. You pretend, until pretending becomes who you are. I didn't stop cheating until classes returned to campus. And even then, it wasn't some moral awakening. It was just the return of watchful eyes. In person. I couldn't Google the answers. I couldn't whisper to AI. I had to try again. And when I got a B on my first in-person quiz, I remember looking at it for a long time. It felt honest, like the grade belonged to me truly. And even though it was lower than my usual A, I kept the paper. I still have it, folded up in the back of a drawer, because it reminds me that there was once a version of me who stopped pretending, even if just for a moment. And maybe that's why I'm whispering this confession now. Not because I want to be punished, but because I want to feel real again. Because some part of me is still that student in a dark room, laptop glowing, wondering if they've just crossed a line they'll never come back from. And the truth is, I did. But I'm trying. I really am. Tier 2. The quiet rewards of dishonesty. There's something strange about being praised for something you didn't earn. It doesn't sting like guilt. It doesn't bite like shame. It glows. Just enough to warm your skin, but not your heart. The compliments started small. You're really good at this online thing. Wish I had your study habits. You must be super disciplined. I remember smiling. I remember nodding, but behind my eyes, I was screaming. The truth sat at the edge of every conversation, like steam on a winter window, visible only for a moment, then gone. At first, I told myself I needed the good grades, that my future depended on it, that employers would never ask how I got the GPA, only what it was. But what no one tells you is that dishonesty has a reward system of its own. It's quiet, but powerful. Every A felt like a tiny permission slip to keep going. Every comment from my parents, were so proud of how your handling the pandemic became a balm, covering up the bruise I knew was underneath. And the more I succeeded, the more I isolated myself. It's hard to be around people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. I remember one afternoon, sitting at my desk, snow falling gently outside, my laptop screen glowing with yet another perfect grade. There was lo-fi music playing in the background, something calm, with soft piano and falling rain sounds. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, I stared at the screen and whispered to no one. I didn't deserve this. But the grade was still mine. No one took it away. No lightning strike. No angry email. No trembling voice saying, "We know what you did." Silence was the only response, and that silence became deafening. I started dreaming about it being exposed. In one dream, my professor called me out by name during a Zoom lecture. In another, my transcript vanished and was replaced by a single word fraud. But I never told anyone. I held onto the lie like a snow globe pretty from the outside, shaking only when disturbed. Inside, everything was frozen. And the rewards kept coming. I got on the dean's list. My relatives messaged me congratulations on Facebook. I was invited to mentor younger students online. Imagine that. A mentor. Someone who, behind the scenes, was just tired. Just trying to get through. Just a little too good at hiding. I thought maybe if I helped others, I could earn back what I'd lost. That if I gave good advice, shared helpful resources, supported someone else's journey, I could balance the scales. But no matter what I gave, the weight didn't shift. Because what I'd stolen wasn't a grade. It was my own sense of integrity. There's a loneliness that grows when you keep something secret for too long. It doesn't scream. It doesn't ache. It just stays. A quiet shadow, following every step you take, even the ones that look perfect from the outside. I remember watching a classmate give a virtual presentation full of real research, real effort, real passion. Her voice shook. Her slides weren't perfect, but she believed in what she was saying. And I felt so small, because I hadn't felt that in a long time. That sense of ownership, of honesty, of earned pride. And yet, the system kept patting me on the back. Emails saying excellent work, digital certificates, virtual applause, all for a version of me that didn't exist. I started wondering if this was how it would be forever. Would I build a life on these foundations? Would I land a job with this degree? Smile through the interviews and never tell a soul what I'd done? Would I grow old and still carry the weight of those perfect lies? The thought haunted me more than the fear of being caught. Because being caught meant it would end. But getting away with it, that meant I had to live with it. Every day. And that, I think, is the real punishment. Not public shame, not revoked credentials, but the knowledge that you know, that behind every win, there's a quiet asterisk no one else can see, but you feel it. Right here, in the quietest part of your chest. And yet, I kept going. Because that's the thing about dishonesty. It becomes familiar. It becomes comfortable. Like wearing a heavy coat indoors, it feels warm, until you realize it's suffocating you. I told myself, just finish the semester. Then, just get through this year. Then, you'll make up for it later. In the real world, where it counts. But healing doesn't wait for perfect timing. And guilt doesn't obey calendars. It creeps in at night. In quiet moments. In the soft lilt of a song. In the face of someone who still believes in you. And now, I'm here. Whispering the truth into this microphone. Not because I want to be forgiven. But because I want to stop lying to you. To them. To me. I don't expect this to fix everything. It's just a start. But sometimes, that's all we get. Tier 3. The silence that followed. I didn't confess to anyone. Not really. Not in words. But after that second winter, the one where my grades kept rising, and my smile kept fading, I noticed that something inside me had stopped asking for more. The ambition went quiet. I used to make lists, to-do lists, future plans, places I'd visit, internships I'd apply for. All of it felt so alive once, so urgent, so bright. But somewhere along the way, I stopped believing I deserved the life I was planning. It was like walking through snow so deep your legs go numb and then telling yourself that numbness means you're strong, not broken. I wasn't proud of myself anymore. Not even when I got my official transcript in the mail. It came in a clean white envelope, the kind that makes parents proud and neighbors jealous. I opened it alone, in the kitchen, with the soft sound of the kettle boiling behind me. I unfolded the paper, looked at my name, and my eyes caught on the GPA. It was high. Too high. Flawless. Almost. A record of perfection carved by imperfection. I ran my fingers across the page like it was someone else's story, a stranger's success. And then I folded it again and put it away. In a drawer. Next to old receipts and forgotten stamps. Because there was no one I could show it to who wouldn't believe the lie. And no one I could tell the truth to, without destroying the version of me they loved. So I did the only thing I could. I disappeared emotionally, not physically. I showed up to class. I replied to emails. I posted smiling pictures on social media. But inside it was just silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that echoes. I started talking less. Stopped volunteering for things I used to enjoy. I ghosted a few group chats. I skipped an optional lecture just to sit on the balcony in my hoodie, watching the fog roll in over the neighborhood. I wasn't sad. Not in the traditional sense. I was just tired of pretending, of performing, of playing the role of the perfect student. It's strange how silence becomes your language when guilt becomes your home. You learn to smile with your eyes and keep your voice steady. You learn which phrases sound believable. Just tired. Yeah. I'm keeping busy. Things are okay. But underneath, you're whispering to yourself, when will someone notice? And no one ever did. Not my professors. Not my parents. Not even the friend who used to text me every Monday to say, "Let's crush this week." I crushed it. All right. But I also crushed something in myself. I began dreaming less and not just at night. I stopped fantasizing about who I'd be after graduation. Because what kind of future can you build on a foundation you know is cracked? There was a day I walked past a bookstore downtown. In the window was a display of graduation cards. You know, the kind glittery script. Photos of smiling students in caps and gowns. And right in the center, one card said, "You earned this." I stood there, staring, for what felt like a lifetime. And something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet snap like a string pulled too tight for too long. I didn't cry. I just walked away. Because what else could I do? I kept that moment in my chest like a photograph. Still. Frozen. Unshareable. And the silence kept growing. I stopped checking my grades. I muted all my school notifications. I deleted the app that tracked my GPA. Because I didn't want to be reminded of who I wasn't. The student who truly earned what I had. Sometimes I'd sit in the dark, scrolling through old emails from professors. Well done. Excellent insight. Keep it up. Each one was a note in a song I couldn't bear to listen to anymore. They meant well. They believed in me. But I didn't believe in myself. And that's the hardest kind of silence to live with. The one between who you seem to be and who you know you are. Tier 4. The cost of getting away with it. You'd think that getting away with something would feel like a victory. But no one talks about the part after the escape. The silence. The slow unraveling. The cost that never shows up on receipts. Because it doesn't hit your wallet. It hits your reflection. I started noticing it in small ways. The way I hesitated when people asked what I studied, as if saying psychology out loud might expose how much of it I'd learned by cheating. The way my fingers hovered above the keyboard when writing cover letters because I didn't know how to speak proudly about a degree that felt half true. The way I avoided eye contact in Zoom breakout rooms because I wasn't sure if the person on the other end had earned their grade or was just like me. These were things no one else could see, but I saw them every day. And I carried them with me into emails, into conversations, into the pauses between congratulations. There's a price to getting away with something, and it's paid in quiet moments. Moments where you should feel proud, and don't. I remember when a friend got rejected from grad school. She was devastated. She'd worked so hard, studied honestly, pushed through every obstacle. And somehow, she didn't make the cut. I did. I got in. My acceptance letter arrived in April. The email header read, "Congratulations. Your future starts here." But when I opened it, my heart didn't leap. It sank. Because I knew that some part of my future, the part being welcomed so warmly, was built on answers I didn't find by myself. That night, I didn't celebrate. I just sat on my bed, letter glowing on the screen, and thought about her, my friend. She would have deserved this. I had only gotten away with something. And that's when it truly hit me. Getting away with it meant I didn't get anything real. No growth. No grit. No honest pride. Just a spot I hadn't truly earned. And a future I wasn't sure I could trust myself to handle. But the world didn't know. It kept moving. It kept rewarding. And I kept smiling, nodding, faking it. Until one day, I couldn't anymore. I was asked to give a short speech for a virtual student panel. Just 5 minutes. To incoming first years. To inspire them. To tell them what had helped me succeed. And I froze. Not on screen, not visibly. I spoke. I smiled. I told them all the usual things. Stay organized. Reach out for help. Believe in yourself. But every sentence felt like a lie. Not because it wasn't true, but because I wasn't the person to say it. When the Zoom call ended, I turned off my camera and sat in silence. I didn't move. Not for minutes. Maybe longer. The cost had finally arrived. And it wasn't a punishment. It wasn't shame. It was a loss of something sacred. The part of me that once believed I could be proud of myself was gone. And in its place was a hollow version. One who knew how to smile, how to achieve, how to perform, but not how to believe in her own integrity anymore. I didn't drop out. I didn't confess. I didn't burn everything down. But I did start over quietly. I started doing things the hard way again. Writing my own papers. Asking questions when I didn't know the answer. Letting myself get things wrong. And that, too, came with a cost. Because when you've cheated before, failing feels like a deeper cut. But I needed to feel it. I needed to know I was still capable of trying, and of owning both the wins and the losses. Because the true cost of getting away with it isn't what you lose in the moment. It's what you lose the right to feel later. Pride. Earned joy. Belonging. I'm still earning those things back. Some days, I feel close. Other days, I feel like a fraud in recovery. But every honest effort I make, every step taken without shortcuts, every pause where I let the silence speak instead of rushing to fill it with praise, that's where I'm rebuilding. Not to erase what I did, but to prove to myself that I can still be someone I respect, even if no one else ever knows how far I've come. Tier 5. The whisper that stayed with me. It's been over a year now. Since the tests. Since the lies. Since the hollow victories. But I still hear the whisper. Not in words. Not in sound. It's more like a presence. Something soft that walks beside me not to punish, but to remind. When I sit down to write something honest, it lingers, just behind my shoulder. When I hear someone speak with genuine pride in their own effort, it rustles gently in my chest, like wind brushing against curtains. It never yells, never accuses, it simply stays. A quiet echo of the version of me I once betrayed. And strangely, I'm grateful for it. Because it's taught me how to live again, not through perfection, but through presence. I started walking more. There's this trail near my apartment, a quiet one. lined with trees that forget to shed their leaves all at once. It's not dramatic, not Instagram-worthy, but it feels real. And sometimes, I take a book there and just sit. Not to study, not to prove anything, just to be. I used to believe that growth had to be loud new titles, new milestones, new praise. But now, I believe in softer things. A walk taken with your phone on silent, a sentence written without shortcuts, an apology you whisper, even if no one hears it. The whisper that stayed with me. It's not the guilt. It's the invitation to become someone better. One small choice at a time. And maybe that's all we ever really have. Not grand redemption. Not dramatic confessions. Just whispers. Soft decisions made in private moments. Tiny shifts back toward the person you hoped you were, before you drifted. I don't hate the version of me who cheated. I understand her now. She was scared. She was tired. She felt like no one would care whether she tried or not, as long as the results looked good. And sometimes, I still feel like her. But I've learned that healing isn't about deleting the past. It's about changing the rhythm of what comes next. So now, when I feel the whisper, I listen. I pause before hitting send. I ask myself, is this really me? I allow the quiet to be my compass, not something to escape, but something to trust. And here I am, speaking into this microphone. Not because I have all the answers, but because I finally understand the question, what kind of person do I want to be when no one is watching? Not perfect. Not invincible. Just honest. Even when it's quiet. Even when it's small. Even when the only person who knows is me. So if you've ever gotten away with something, and it left a silence inside you, maybe you're not broken. Maybe that silence is just the beginning of a better story. A gentler one. A real one. Yours. Thank you for listening to the quiet side of honesty. This was Gentle Confessions. Come back tomorrow, we'll whisper again.